everybody, and welcome to the Cover 2 Podcast Super Bowl Recap Edition. I am Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And today, that's pretty much what we're doing. We're just going to be recapping every single element of Super Bowl 54 that you possibly can. We're going to be looking at the game. Obviously, we're going to be looking at the choice of Patrick Mahomes as MVP, what the Chiefs' legacy is because of this game and on after this game. And we'll also potentially even talk about our favorite commercials and the halftime
commercials, the halftime show, for sure. That's not even a question. Of course we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Because that might have been the best performance on the field the entire game. So we will get into that a little bit later. We're going to start with dissecting the Chiefs' win over the 49ers. We will break it down for you, give you the players that we thought would do well, maybe some of the players that we didn't expect to do so well that did. And, you know, if you want a recap of the game, then this is the place to be.
Yeah, this is absolutely the place. We're going to do as much as we possibly can. No commercial breaks, nothing like that. We're just going to straight shoot about the Super Bowl game and just talk about it. We're going to dive into it. I think there's a lot to say about the game itself, just specifically because of the comeback again from the Chiefs, the lack or the conservativeness of the 49ers that I think is impossible to not mention about this game. And we'll do the whole thing that the guys on TV have been doing the last couple of days where we kind of tell you whether it was the 49ers loss or a Chiefs win. We'll do that as well.
That's actually a pretty easy answer.
Yeah, it is if you're not biased towards one of the teams. To be honest, but So how do we want to start this? Though, do we kind of? I mean, what was your feeling of the game after watching it? Was this one of the better Super Bowl games that you've watched the last couple of years?
I think the fourth quarter was great. I mean, listen, both teams had 2 turnovers each, and for every team, it doesn't matter if you're in the Super Bowl, if it's a regular season game, you always talk about don't turn the ball over, protect the football, all that stuff, right? And especially with Patrick Mahomes, a guy who I think we can argue is one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And for him to throw 2 interceptions, and one of them was just horrific. It was right to a 49ers defender. I mean, I don't know what he was looking at. But to have sloppy play on both sides of the ball, it was a little uncharacteristic, and maybe there was just some nerves that needed to be settled down. And I think I mentioned that on last week's podcast, that the first quarter was probably going to be a little sloppy, a little ugly because of the hype, right? And the butterflies going through your stomach, and it's going to take a minute to actually settle down, catch your breath, and get into a regular flow of the game. Because at the end of the day, this is still a regular game, right? These guys have played these games. It's just magnified because you have more people watching. And at the end, if you win, you get a ring. You're the Super Bowl champion. So I understand why there's going to be more nerves and more jitters. And I think we definitely did see that in the beginning of the game where teams are feeling each other out and they're also just trying to settle themselves down, because if you get too amped up, I mean, I think we saw it. The Chiefs went 3 and out, punted the ball to the 49ers, and the punt returner muffed the ball. Luckily, it took a 49ers bounce, and he was able to jump right back on that. But I think that just showed right there that those nerves are going, right? It's the first punt of the game, and all eyes are on you, and the guy muffs it, and you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah. If the Chiefs would have recovered that ball, they would have had the ball at like the 5 or 6 yard line. I mean, so just the way that the momentum could have swung, in that early game, you have to be able to settle your team down. And I'm sure that's what both coaches were talking about.
And you know what? I'm actually glad you brought up the clunkiness of the game, because I don't think that's something we were going to talk about prior. You know what I think that has to do with? Well, is obviously there's nerves, right? And both these teams were young. Their rosters were, I believe the average age was like 25 or something like that for both teams.
Really? 25?
Maybe I did off with that.
But definitely, I mean, mid-20s.
At least most of the... Patrick Mahomes is
contributors,
younger.
The guys that were actually...
Yeah, exactly. Jimmy Garoppolo's not in his 30s. He's still in his 20s. You know what we're missing, right? We're missing the experience of the Patriots in the Super Bowl. At least it's something that I guess we don't want to see, but also there's that little, respect that you can give when you're watching those games. Like, that was a Super Bowl team right there.
Right. They've been there before.
When the Eagles and Patriots played, it didn't seem like either team was rusty, because I think the Patriots bring out the best in a lot of teams. I think when you're looking at the Chiefs and 49ers, two teams the Chiefs hadn't been in the Super Bowl in ages. And
50 years.
Yeah, and the 49ers, very young team, coming off one of the worst stretches in their history. It is understandable why this was clunky. And although the game ended up, having a good ending and it ended up being kind of tense near the end, this game was very clunky. And especially when you look at the first 3 quarters of the game and with the way the 49ers kind of play overall, I could see some football purists saying this was a bit of a more boring Super Bowl. And I was just looking at this too. The last time the Patriots weren't in the Super Bowl was the Panthers and Broncos, another clunky game. Cam Newton fumbling the ball twice, interception, final score only being 24-10. I think when you have these unbelievable defenses also in these games, it tends to, you don't see the Texans-Chiefs-like game, right? You see
right.
A lot of football fans, when they watch the Super Bowl, they see these games, they're like, 13-3, like what? But, us football guys know why this is happening.
Exactly. Well, let's before we actually dissect each team, let's talk about the question that everyone has been asking.
Yeah, let's do it.
Did the San Francisco 49ers lose this game, or did the Chiefs win? I have a clear-cut answer for this, but I want to get your opinion on it before I speak.
The 49ers blew this game.
Okay.
The 49ers absolutely should have won this game. And I didn't say that before. But once the game started, especially Chiefs going 3 and out, and the 49ers getting the ball and actually getting points, I thought that was the beginning of like, okay, 49ers are here to play. Like they didn't. Yeah, I was expecting Garoppolo honestly to throw an interception the first time.
They drove down the field, right, and they had to settle for a field goal. But I think they showed that hey, we can move the ball. And albeit none of us thought that the Chiefs' defense was great, not as good as the 49ers' defense. But for the 49ers to run the ball like they did, to kind of run it down the Chiefs' throat, the Chiefs were able to bend but not break and hold the 49ers to a field goal. But I came away from that first drive saying, oh boy, the Chiefs are going to be in trouble, right? Because the 49ers are going to be able to move the ball at will, and eventually they're going to capitalize and turn those points into touchdowns.
Well, no, and you look at it, it's like, the first drive of a lot of football games, period, are, you always got to look at it with a second eye, right? You got to be like, okay, well, we don't know if that was a scripted drive, and they just had perfect that in practice for 2 weeks. A lot of teams don't get 2 weeks to prepare for a game. Right. Only after your bye week a lot, but even some teams a lot of time to play on Thursday night. Before that, only getting 10 days off.
And I think what Nick means by that is a lot of teams will go into a game with anywhere from 5 to 10 to even 15 plays that are scripted, which means for the first 5 plays, right, you're going to run. You practice those plays automatically. So you know as a player what you're going to be doing as the game goes on, depending on the score and momentum and all that stuff. You don't know exactly what plays you're going to be running in the third and fourth quarter, but at least for the first quarter and your first drive, as an offense at least, you would think you would have success because you know the plays you're running.
And you want a touchdown out of that too, because you've been working on that specific set, and it's kind of just like that initial punch, that punch in the face, that punch in the mouth, right? 49ers get points. They get 3 points on the first drive. They had chances to score touchdowns, but their quarterback's inability to simply throw the ball normal in this game is something that we'll talk about later, ended up losing in this game. But so you look at it, 7-3, right? Where this really turned was the third quarter, where I thought they absolutely, they kind of dominated the game. And they took a big lead, 20-10, and it was really just their game. But old Mr. Conservative, Kyle Shanahan, decides, oh no, we'll talk about the halftime in a second, right? But no, we're just gonna try to literally burn the clock and just not try to win the game. And when you do that in the NFL, you lose. Like, very rarely do you just win. And they don't have Derrick Henry to run over guys. You don't have these other great running backs. You have a couple serviceable guys that interchange in Tevin Coleman and Mostert and Matt Breida, right? But it just doesn't work. It didn't work, and that's why they gave the Chiefs every single possible chance to come back in that game, and then they did. And then they ended up losing by 2 possessions, which is so brutal when you look at the score later too.
Well, you see, it's interesting you say that because from my opinion, in my eyes, the 49ers, what do they do best? They run the football.
Yeah.
When you have a lead, you have a great defense that you can rely on, who the defense up into that third quarter have been playing extremely well. You run the football. And I think I mentioned this before we actually came on the show, and I said, even if the 49ers were not consistently picking up first downs, the fact that they would continue to run the football meant that clock was winding down. And I said this last week too. If you're the 49ers, you run the ball effectively, you run the clock, and you keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. You give him less time to be able to go on the field and make plays. Right now, I'm not saying that they should, run the ball 15 times in a row and never throw it. You have to mix in play action. You eventually have to let Jimmy Garoppolo throw the football. But I think what they got away from more so in the fourth quarter than anything else was actually running the football. There was a play, I believe it was before the Chiefs actually started their comeback, so it was still 20-10. It was a 1st and 10. The 49ers ran the ball for 5 yards. They then, the next 2 consecutive plays, threw the ball, right? Both incompletions. They ended up having to punt the ball back to Kansas City. What that tells me is that Kyle Shanahan, who's not only the head coach, but the offensive coordinator, decided to go away from his game plan. And said, I think he got a little cocky. I think he started to feel himself a little bit. And I think we mentioned this on last week's podcast as well. I think I said it too. I said, is Kyle Shanahan going to want to put the ball in Jimmy G's hands and spotlight him and showcase him, right? To say, all the naysayers, he's more than just a, kind of conservative game manager quarterback. And I think that's what he tried to do for a minute, because they went away from the running game when they were averaging 4 or 5 yards a carry. And by the way, if you average 4 yards a carry running the ball and you run the ball 3 consecutive times, you're going to pick up a first down.
Well, you're either going to come up with a first down, or you're going to be like a yard short.
Inches.
And you're going to, and your 4th down is going to be short every single time, and you're going to think about at least going for it. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So I think what I'm trying to say in all of this is the 49ers went away from their game plan, and I know that you were saying that they ran the ball too much, maybe in the third quarter. I don't think they ran the ball enough in the fourth quarter. And like I said, you don't play to lose, but you play to your strengths. Your strength is not putting the ball in Jimmy G's hands, who threw 2 interceptions, by the way. They weren't all back-to-back, but throughout the game he threw 2 interceptions. You run the football. You have 2 running backs, right, who are consistently in the game. So it's not like you just have one bell cow and you have to be able to spare him, and when he goes on the sideline, you have to throw the ball. You have 2 guys that are interchangeable, that can come in and out, that both want the rock and were demanding the football, and they just simply did not get it enough, in my opinion, in the fourth quarter. Like I mentioned, if the 49ers, even if they wouldn't have got first downs, if they would have just kept running the ball, they would have done 2 things. One, they would have run the clock down to where the Chiefs more than likely wouldn't have had enough time to go down the field and score 2 touchdowns, even though they ended up getting 3. Or number 2, you force the Chiefs to use their timeouts. So that way, later on in the fourth quarter, with 3 and 4 minutes left in the game, the Chiefs are having to constantly go no huddle because they don't have any timeouts to waste. So I think you're forcing the hand of the Chiefs. But by simply going away from the run, throwing the ball, and not being successful with that, you do 2 things that hurt yourself. You stop the clock, and you let the Chiefs keep their timeouts.
Yeah, I mean,
and I just think that was a recipe for disaster, because like I said, I think Kyle Shanahan started to feel himself a little bit, and I think he wanted to kind of showcase Jimmy Garoppolo and put him in the spotlight a little more than he probably should have.
And he shouldn't have, because we all knew, and it's the one thing I think we 100% agreed on last week, was that if it is put into Jimmy Garoppolo's hands to win this game, more than likely they aren't going to win the game because of the other quarterback on the other team.
Right.
You're looking at Jimmy G, who's trying to prove himself as a legitimate starting quarterback in the league, versus the best quarterback in the league. Potentially the best quarterback for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, no, that's debatable.
Like,
debatable.
This is not the time to do that. okay? And you know, as an NFC West fan,
What's gonna happen?
this is two straight years there where these quarterbacks are getting, exposed. I think we have a problem in the NFL with these young coaches, and I really hope this doesn't happen to Cliff Kingsbury as well.
He's your young coach.
There is a problem with these coaches, like you mentioned, changing their game plans in the most important time of the game. What got you there, 49ers? Was it, pounding the rock, relying on other guys besides Jimmy G, or was it letting Jimmy G sling the ball down the court? It wasn't. It was. So he did the same thing against the Patriots. Oh, but that was a historic comeback. I think they just need to put a little bit more pressure on. Shanahan again just was like, let's just run the ball, let's run on the clock, right? I'm talking about Super Bowl 51, where the Falcons had the worst, the worst choke of all time. It was the offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, right? So he got the job, essentially with the 49ers because of his job with the Falcons. But, yeah, here's my biggest gripe with the 49ers on this, because I didn't really have a gripe with the Chiefs because they won the game, was the whole right before the half debacle with the clock. I mean, even their GM, their owner, John Lynch,
sitting up in the press box.
I was sitting behind the couch calling timeouts, right? So you look at it, and again, it has to do with what's the word? But they don't trust Jimmy G.
So they're playing scared.
They could have given him 2 minutes, almost 2 full minutes with the ball, and you potentially could have ran the ball. You could have done all your screens, all that crap that they do behind the line of scrimmage without having to, put Jimmy G in the line of fire here, and you still could have maybe got a field goal, right? And it would have changed the game a little bit, because when they went into halftime, it was 20-10.
Halftime was tied 10-10.
It was tied 10-10.
Yeah.
My bad. You get points, whatever, and then what ended up happening was you had the 49ers ended up, because I believe they started with the ball too, right? They started with the ball.
They did. So they could have double dipped.
Like, what are you doing?
Best case scenario.
Yeah, but instead they got super conservative, and so I think the underlying, because if you're an NFL fan, you know what they did. I mean, not only did they not call timeouts when the Chiefs had the ball, they then kneeled the ball with Jimmy G. Like, they just gave up with like a minute left to go. So it was one of the most conservative football play calling I've seen in the NFL, period, for like a number of years. I could not believe that was happening in the Super Bowl. When on the other side, Andy Reid was going forth on like every single fourth down.
Right, and actually,
he doesn't usually do that. Yeah.
In the regular season, the Chiefs had the least amount of fourth down attempts, right? I believe they only attempted 10.
Yeah.
Right, and that was the least. And all of a sudden in the Super Bowl, you know what they did? They decided to not play scared, and they decided to play to win the game as opposed to playing not to lose the game. And there's a big difference.
And that's why the 49ers lost the game, because they played not to lose and the Chiefs played to win. But I think the underlying thing is, with this game, and even with last year's game, because I want to keep bringing it up, is for some reason these young coaches they just don't know what to do in the most important moments. Sean McVay not using Todd Gurley. He may have been injured last year, but not using your number one weapon and relying on Jared Goff is a stupid idea. Okay, when you're playing the New England Patriots, you're playing a great team, right? That's the same exact thing the 49ers ended up doing this game. I just think their overall system, with having to rely completely on running the ball with non-star running backs, I just don't think is the best idea either. And I think it pigeonholed them to where they essentially were going to need Jimmy G to do something, and he ended up taking it and really never.
See, I disagree with that a little bit, because they did that all season long and it got them to the Super Bowl.
Does the regular season title mean anything?
No, it doesn't. Look what they did in the playoffs. They averaged over 200 yards rushing in both of their playoff games. I mean, they looked like a rushing juggernaut, and that's why I said, going into this game, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball.
But that's what I'm saying. I think they pitch it. I think when you give it, it's different though in Super Bowl because you give teams 2 weeks to prepare. And when your thing is running the ball, a lot of times when they gave it to Deebo Samuel something around, they got a lot of yards.
Right, because they were doing screens and misdirections
I just think
and reverses.
The Chiefs' number one thing was we're going to stop this. We're going to stop
of course. And I said that last week. I said, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you put 20 guys in the box, you play one-on-one on the outside, meaning the cornerbacks and the safeties are playing one-on-one against the receivers and the tight ends, and you dare the 49ers to pass the ball and beat you that way. You know that they have a good running game, and their passing game, other than George Kittle, is not really a threat. So if you're the Chiefs, I would have loaded the box up, put 8 guys in the box, and said, I dare you, Jimmy Garoppolo, to beat us. Now, if they beat you with George Kittle, you know what? All you can do is sit there and clap and say, good game, San Francisco. But more than likely, if you put the ball in Jimmy G's hands, which we saw, he's going to turn the ball over, which the Chiefs got 2 interceptions. And in the fourth quarter, when the 49ers needed Jimmy Garoppolo the most, he was not able to deliver, right? And so you're right. Obviously, when you have an extra week with 2 weeks to prepare, that's going to benefit you. But you didn't need 2 weeks to figure out that. Put as many guys as you can in the box, stop the run, force Jimmy Garoppolo to throw, and you will more than likely have success against them.
I'm not sitting here saying Jimmy Garoppolo literally can't throw the ball. Like, I'm not watching Navy or Army running offense, right? But it just, in the Super Bowl against some elite DBs the Chiefs have, it just is not going to work. And we saw it. And for some reason, also, Jimmy G cannot take a hit without closing his eyes before he throws the ball, too, which, Jared, it's very hard to hit your target as a receiver if your eyes are not open.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I haven't seen quarterbacks do that a lot either, where their eyes are closed.
I think he became scared. I think he got a little.
Dude, it's just I'm just glad as my franchise here, the Cardinals, my quarterback is just not that frail, and it's just not. It's just it warms my heart.
Well, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Jimmy Garoppolo, who dropped back 31 times in this game, right? Let's all remember, in the NFC Championship game just 2 weeks prior, he threw the ball a total of, was it less than 10 times?
Yeah.
Right? So you go from 10 to now 31 passing attempts when in most games, Garoppolo is not used to throwing it that many times. Now, that's not an excuse for why you should close your eyes, but I think what the 49ers did, and I mentioned this, and we can beat this into the ground, They went away from their game plan. They went away from what works, which is protecting Jimmy Garoppolo by running the football. And then once they have success running the ball, you can then run play action and fool the defense and make it better opportunities for Jimmy Garoppolo.
And it didn't even seem earlier in the game too that there was a bit more play action than usual too. Overall, I do think there was an attempt to try to kind of make Jimmy G the hero of this game.
Right, like I said, I had a feeling that Kyle Shanahan was going to want to do that, and it backfired.
Him winning the game makes him a hero. Like, he literally could have threw the ball 15 times, and there was a chance he might have got, MVP. I mean, it's debatable whether Patrick Mahomes should have got MVP for this game with what his running back did.
That is debatable.
It's just like, it's such a weird thought process that Shanahan, possibly went through here with, let me make Jimmy G win this game, and that's just not what happened. But going back to my point, I just want to ask you really quickly, do you think this might change some people's mind on picking up these young head coaches? I mean, your Cowboys just picked up Mike McCarthy. They didn't go the Lincoln Riley route, Urban Meyer route. Right. Do you think, now having seen 2 consecutive years in a row with these young coaches going away from their game plans, not knowing really what to do, that we might see other teams kind of hire some veteran head coaches?
Not at all.
You don't think it's going to happen at all?
Because guess what? Those 2 coaches, as in Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, where did they end up? They still ended up in the Super Bowl in their second and third years, respectively, coaching. So, listen, I mean, you look at it as a veteran coach in Jason Garrett, and I'm not comparing him to any of these other coaches, but I'm just saying he has a lot more experience than Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan combined, and yet he was never able to take a team as talented as the Dallas Cowboys to the Super Bowl, right? So, no, I think there's Cliff Kingsbury, you've got Josh McDaniels, who I wouldn't say he's young, early 30s, but he's still a generally young coach. He's not Bill Belichick. He's not. I don't know. He's not even Jason Garrett, right?
He has Zach Taylor in Cincinnati.
Zach Taylor, right?
Matt Rule now in Carolina.
Right.
So a lot of these rebuilding teams.
LaFleur.
Well, that's when these coaches have come in too. You got to remember how bad the Rams were before McVay got there.
Right.
They were one of the worst. They were the worst.
I know. I feel that, and especially the way that the league is going, with more creativity, more passing, it is becoming more of a college football league where you're not seeing as the old style, the running, bruising over the middle and run the ball 30, 40 times a game and play great defense. Now, San Francisco kind of went away from the grain and it worked for them. But I think in the long run, you will see more and more coaches being picked up at a younger age if they're willing to have that creativity to come in and look at what the Baltimore Ravens did, right? To have the creativity and the mindset to take Lamar Jackson's skill set, to put your own ego aside and say, hey, you know what? We know what we have in this player. I'm going to recreate my offense around him as opposed to forcing this player to learn our offense, right? A lot of times when you force a player or a team to learn your ways and it's your way or the highway, the majority of the time that is not successful. But I think what makes a great coach is when that coach can plan their schemes and what they do best around what your players do best. And so when you look at a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, I forget who the offensive coordinator is for the Baltimore Ravens, but when you have these guys that have the creativity and the mindset to put their egos aside and say, we're going to do what's best for these players, and I will change what I do, right? Because the coaches aren't the ones out on the field. Yes, they may be the brains of the operation, but that's just the thing. They're the brains. So if they don't have that mindset to be creative, it's just not going to work. So no, I think you will see eventually Lincoln Riley. We saw obviously Matt Rule get hired with the Carolina Panthers. I think we will continue to see a trend of the younger, innovative coaches coming into the league, whether it's through the college ranks or whether they become assistant coaches in the NFL and then eventually become head coaches.
Yeah, but when you look at the guys who won Super Bowls the last couple of years, it has not been those guys.
Hey, maybe the Cowboys know something with Mike McCarthy.
It's a change. Cliff Kingsbury is going to change the whole thing. If you're wondering why we're sitting here watching, not wearing Chiefs 49ers jersey, it's because it's a new season and our teams are now 0-0.
It's technically true. Yeah,
and technically we both still have a chance at Super Bowl this year. So.
That is a true statement.
Feeling good. Feeling good.
Yeah, very optimistic.
Although my boy Chandler Jones, maybe this is what our second topic should be, should have won Defensive Player of the Year this year. I am heated about this.
Hey, you know what? Stephon Gilmore, I think he made a great case. Shut down corner. Lockdown. Stephon Gilmore Island-esque.
Yeah,
Revis Island-esque.
It was good.
It was great.
It was good, but Chandler Jones, that defense is nothing. And he essentially doing it all by himself. Stephon Gilmore does have help from the rest of that defense. I'm just saying. You got Bill Belichick under your wing.
Little biased.
Fans Joseph.
You know what? Every once in a while, we have that on this show.
Shout John Jones going to win the championship again. He retain his championship again.
That's also why Nick is wearing that shirt. Support both the Jones brothers.
Yeah, I love both of them. All right, let's give some love or not some love to Patrick Mahomes right now, because he won MVP for this game. A lot of people were saying if the Chiefs win, it's going to be a dynasty. Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the league.
No doubt. I agree with that.
But I thought his performance was underwhelming for this game.
It was mediocre.
You're saying
mediocre? Until the fourth quarter.
Okay, that's fair.
Until the fourth quarter,
average performance.
When he put that Superman cape on and said, we're going to come alive. And I think one of the greatest things about Patrick Mahomes is not only his play on the field, but his leadership. Tyreek Hill, who some people call the Cheetah, one of the fastest receivers in the game, an electrifying player for the Kansas City Chiefs, literally was down. Patrick Mahomes had to come up to him in the fourth quarter. Tyreek Hill was like, man, we're down 10 with 7 minutes left. How are we going to come back? Patrick Mahomes had to lift him up and say, hey man, I need you right now. You are my best weapon. I need you. Lo and behold, what happens? Patrick Mahomes hits Tyreek Hill for a 40-yard gain on a miraculous throw. But I think it's that type of leadership from a 23, 24-year-old quarterback that you wouldn't necessarily expect. I think you would expect that from a 30-year-old, a Tom Brady, an Aaron Rodgers, something like that. But for Patrick Mahomes to have the mindset to know that one of his teammates is down and to say, hey man, you need to pick it up. We still have time left, right? And let's not forget, the Chiefs in the playoffs were down at one point by 24 to the Houston Texans. They were down at one point by double digits to the Tennessee Titans. So they are all too familiar with being down, right? But they're never out. When you have Patrick Mahomes and that offense and the creativity that they are never out of a game. I actually give a lot of credit to the Chiefs defense for actually stepping up, stopping the 49ers run, in a sense making them have to pass the ball, getting some key interceptions, giving the ball back to your juggernaut offense and letting them finally go to work. Because I said this from the very beginning, and especially on last week's podcast, you can contain Patrick Mahomes, but you cannot stop Patrick Mahomes for 4 quarters. We saw Patrick Mahomes contained for 3 quarters, and finally in the 4th quarter, because the 49ers gave him opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, say that 3 times fast, he finally delivered and said, okay, you guys have given us too many chances, we are now going to deliver. So going back to your point of Mahomes winning the MVP, yes, he's the quarterback, he's the guy that has the ball in his hands on every single play. I think this was a situation, if we go back a couple years ago, when the New England Patriots beat the Seattle Seahawks and Malcolm Butler made that miraculous interception at the goal line. Even though Tom Brady ended up winning the MVP, he actually gave the honors to Malcolm Butler, gave him the truck that was won for that MVP. I think Patrick Mahomes could have done the same thing with Damian Williams, the Chiefs starting running back. He carried the ball 17 times for 104 yards. He had that basically game-sealing touchdown. But, I mean, listen, for Damian Williams not necessarily being a household name, to have 100 yards in the Super Bowl game, he kind of... 2 touchdowns. He had the passing touchdown as well. I think Damian Williams, you can make a great case that he deserved the MVP award.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the stats overall for Patrick Mahomes, it's 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had the 2 interceptions. One of them it was a bad throw, but it's somehow somewhat blame on there was a Tyreek Hill that missed the pass as well. One of his interceptions got tipped off somebody's hand.
I believe so. One of them was bad. I mean, one of them he literally threw to the 49ers.
It was worse than any of Garoppolo's, which were
right.
bad too.
Right.
Yeah, so his QBR was 61, which isn't terrible, right? But yeah, you look at Williams, 17 carries, 104 yards rushing, one of them being after the line, after he got past the line and scored that long touchdown. Nobody was even behind anybody. Still counts, but, and then his contributions in the passing game as well, especially with that touchdown. I just think you look at your running back has over 130 yards on, less than, it's only 21 touches the whole game.
Answer this question right now. If Damian Williams doesn't have the game that he has, if Damian Williams doesn't play in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs win.
They don't win. Yeah, so they don't win. And I know Patrick Mahomes, he had a touchdown run. Who was the decoy on the play? Damian Williams.
Right.
The reason that Patrick Mahomes scored is because it's Damian Williams. Right. So it's like literally every single play here. But I think we both understand why Patrick Mahomes.
No, of course, and it's the quarterback. Yeah. The quarterback will get more praise than they deserve when you win, and when you lose, the quarterback gets more blame than they probably deserve. That's just the way it is. So because the Chiefs won, because Patrick Mahomes is basically the new face of the NFL. You can make an argument that Tom Brady still has the reins, but I feel like it's just like a track race. They're coming around the bend on that 4x400, and that Tom Brady is literally in the process of handing that baton off to Patrick Mahomes, and I feel that going into the 2020 season, if the Kansas City Chiefs come out on fire like I expect them to do, and Patrick Mahomes has another MVP type season, I feel that he will kind of cement himself as the quarterback and the face of the NFL and kind of take the reins over from Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Even though Tom Brady's still going to come back and play next year, I think it's just like anything. You can talk about Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson to Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant to LeBron James.
I was just going to say that. And
there's that cycle.
Exactly. I remember, it probably was longer than this ago, but 5 years ago or so, it was, especially when Kobe started getting hurt and stuff like that, you kind of were like, oh, it really is LeBron. Like, it's not, and now, obviously, it's...
And we hope Tom Brady doesn't get injured, obviously, but it's just... Listen, Father Time is undefeated. So eventually, whether Tom Brady plays 1 more year, 2, or even, who knows, 3 years, because he said he wanted to play till he's 45, he's just not the same player anymore, and he needs more weapons. Patrick Mahomes is just simply amazing. He can throw the ball 80 yards on his knees without breaking a sweat, right? So, like I said, I think that slowly passing the torch and going into next season, by midway, I think it'll be his.
Yeah, so I did want to mention. So I think we came up with 3 guys last week that were kind of unsung guys that were supposed to do stuff. And I think we
played well.
Yeah, we played well. Now we kind of transitioned off of the stats a little bit, but I think we can go back to this, just make some points about another reason why, besides like coaching decisions and all that stuff, why one team won and why another won. I believe the 3 players you mentioned it was Emmanuel Sanders, Richard Sherman, and Sammy Watkins.
Yes.
3?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you look at it, Sammy Watkins almost had 100 yards on 5
That was my pick, by the way.
That was his pick. Great pick on him.
Thank you.
Richard Sherman had a good game, but gave up the biggest play to your guy Sammy Watkins, which is it's fitting. And overall, there was a couple of bigger plays in this game where Sherman was kind of the guy that allowed first downs and stuff like that, and he just didn't play up to, I think, the element. And it was when like I mentioned, the DBs for 49ers are not the strength of that team, and because of Sherman, they're able to kind of hold together. When Sherman starts to give stuff up, that's when stuff can happen. And that's when Patrick Mahomes can find open guys. And then the other one was. Who would you say? Emmanuel Sanders, who did not have much. Emmanuel Sanders, you won't see it on the stat sheet, but he did get behind 2 defenders in a play we haven't even mentioned yet.
If Jimmy Garoppolo could have hit that pass, and I think I mentioned this as well, Jimmy Garoppolo just badly overthrew Emmanuel Sanders, who got past the corner and the safety. I mean, there was no one in front of him. If he would have put that ball in the money, it would have been 6, a touchdown, no doubt about it. Even if Jimmy Garoppolo would have underthrown Emmanuel Sanders, and Emmanuel Sanders would have been forced to stop, slow down, and come back to the football, I think, especially in today's NFL, Emmanuel Sanders could have made a case that he could have probably run into one of the defenders and caused a pass interference. I mean, you never know, but when you overthrow a player, you take everything out of the equation, right? And I think that is one that will keep Jimmy Garoppolo up at night. I think that's one throw that will haunt him, because if you have that throw back, it's not only a great throw, it's a touchdown. It is a game-changing throw, and the 49ers are essentially right. When did that play happen?
Dude, I honestly think
that was in the 4th quarter.
I honestly think it was 20-17. 49ers, and it was right.
So that would have made it potentially 26, 27-17, and
I'm actually,
and then the time is dwindling down for the Chiefs, and who knows if the Chiefs are now able to come back and they have to get 2 scores again. That play will go down to me as one of the oh my gosh plays, and I think everyone on the San Francisco 49ers, especially Jimmy Garoppolo, is going to be haunted by that throw. I know it was in the 4th quarter. I forget the exact score, but one thing I do know is that would have had a huge change.
Okay, here's where it was. It was, it's even worse, I believe.
Oh,
this
gosh.
Is the play. It's, they were down 24-20, 3rd and 10. It says incomplete deep middle.
So if they would have completed that, they would have went up 27-24.
And it was, because then brutally the Chiefs scored a touchdown.
That's right.
And it was just
and that's
game
what blew
over.
it. Yeah, that was a Damian Williams touchdown.
So look at going that at that point you have to start passing the ball. But again, big play in the game, and Garoppolo it's his fault, because Sanders was open, he did his job. But when you look at the stat sheet, besides that, Sanders really didn't do anything. And it's another reason I think that the Niners ended up losing when the guy you traded for, the guy you kind of brought on to be that extra piece, really didn't do anything really most of the playoffs, to be honest, and ended up not contributing to the Super Bowl as well. Okay, what do we expect from the Chiefs here on out?
The same damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Here's the thing. I was reading an article earlier today. The Chiefs are bringing back 10, I believe, they're starting 11 on offense already, right? Including most of their offensive line. and they have all 10 of those players who contribute greatly on their team, on at least the offensive side of the football, they are all signed through the 2021 season. So for the next 2 years, you're going to have Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and basically your entire offensive line all locked up. So you're going to have that same continuity, guys that know each other. Andy Reid's not going anywhere, so you're going to basically have the same playbook. I mean,
Erica Bellamy isn't going anywhere either.
At least not for this year, and barring any injuries, which I hope we obviously do not see. I never wish that on any player. If this team stays healthy, I don't see why the Chiefs are not in the Super Bowl again next year.
I mean, because when you look at it, I mean, let's assume Tom Brady stays with New England, right? You always have a chance, right, at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he is, but that's a topic for another day. We'll talk about that on next week's show.
Did you see the commercial at the Super Bowl?
Doesn't mean anything. Tom Brady said.
Did that look like Tom Brady
said he's returning. He didn't say to the Patriots.
He said he's not going anywhere, Jared.
Okay, he said he's not going anywhere.
Moving to Los Angeles to play for the Chargers?
No, not going anywhere means he's not retiring. That doesn't necessarily mean he's staying with New England. Not going anywhere. Going anywhere means that he's staying in the NFL.
So we're interpreting this completely.
Yes, we are.
I thought you believed it.
No, hell no.
I don't think you stressed enough to me at the party that you had that you.
Oh no! I apparently did not make myself clear. I did, yes. So no, I think Tom Brady. I know we're going off topic here, but no, I think Tom Brady is saying that he's not going anywhere. And he's staying in the NFL, but he will be in a different uniform next year. Mark my words.
Okay. So let's just say, let's do this. I mean, whether he goes to the Chargers or the Patriots, you look at it. It's Texans, still great team. Need to figure out their offensive line, but
right.
Then they'll be a legitimate, opponent. The Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Although I don't think they could have been. They can be any better than they were last year. To be honest, I just don't. They're going to be like I just see. We're gotta regress a little bit.
I don't think so.
Right? You don't think so at all?
I think Lamar Jackson will go into this offseason, and one thing about great players, he's already said that he's going to work with certain Hall of Famers in Florida in the offseason. But one thing about them is they like to take one specific part of their game and work on that every single offseason, right? I guess the one thing you can say about Lamar Jackson is that he needs to get better at his accuracy and actually making consistent throws. If Lamar Jackson can improve on his throwing game,
at that point,
that's going to take that entire team to another level because you obviously have to respect their running game and the option game that they have with Mark Ingram and their other plethora of running backs. But you now take Lamar Jackson and put him in shotgun when he needs to and play action when he needs to. I don't see how that offense how you can stop them. They're almost like the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, albeit they're two different styles of play, the Kansas City Chiefs like to throw the ball a little bit more. But I don't see how you stop either offense. I would love to see Kansas City and Baltimore in the AFC Championship game. I might call it right now. I don't know. This is obviously way too early predictions here. But no, I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to keep ascending and going up.
No, but to your point, so there are some teams you can obviously look at in the AFC, but the Chiefs are always going to be 1-2.
Yes.
I feel it's very fair to say that they will be in the Super Bowl next year. There's a lot of NFC teams that could be there too. I wouldn't say they're going to win again, especially after this performance wasn't the best either in this one. I think if they were to have played a better offensive team overall, I think they would have lost this game. But didn't matter.
Okay.
They won. Who cares, right? Patriots probably would have lost last year too if they would play a better team too.
I mean, first Super Bowl in 50 years for the Chiefs, right? I mean, how amazing is that?
I think some part of this is going to be released on Wednesday. Their parade is Wednesday.
Is tomorrow.
So it should be good because Kansas City, they got to see the Royals twice, which is awesome. But football team
It's a little different.
Little bit different. Okay, let's get to the nonsense. Okay. Now I did not watch the halftime show because
I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Around.
I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Drunken BS going on at my house, but Jared, you did watch it. It seemed like you were intently watching it. I don't know why. But I just wasn't at the time. I wasn't interested. So please,
I don't know. The girl you're dating was there, and you didn't want to, have your eyes fixated on there.
There was animals outside that were just
animals outside.
We don't need to get into it.
It was. I was at your house, but I don't remember what the heck was going on. Apparently, I was focused on the entire game, including the halftime show. It was a great performance by Shakira and J-Lo. Actually, comment on who you think had the better performance, because Shakira came out first, and she did her thing, right? She had a couple songs of her own, and then J-Lo took the stage and played a couple of her hits, and then they collaborated and did a huge finish together. So let us know who you think had the better performance. Listen, Shakira's hips do not lie. They don't at all. And I think if you had to put one above the other, I would say Shakira was the better performer. But still, listen, J-Lo, she went full on Hustlers. And if you haven't seen that movie, it's a good movie, by the way, that J-Lo's in. It was like a huge pole that came out, and she was like, she strangled the pole and then started like going around it, but like she was doing it with her leg. It was like all lower body strength. I don't know how the heck she did that. It was really funny too. Alex Rodriguez, J-Lo's fiance, was like in the crowd, in the mosh pit, and he was like kind of filming it the whole time. So it was pretty funny to see. Obviously, he said that she had a great performance, but you're her fiance.
Bias.
Of course, you're gonna say that. No, I thought it was a really, really great halftime performance, especially after last year when you had just a mosh posh of, I don't want to say random artists, but artists who hadn't really collaborated together, and it just seemed really awkward. This had a very Miami style to it with J-Lo and Shakira, and I thought it was a great performance. You missed out. You're gonna have to go back and watch it.
After you said that thing about the poll, I might have to go watch it now.
Yeah, no, it's a must watch. It's a must rewatch.
Yeah, I'm reading here that they even this is kind of some unsung stuff that wouldn't have been said. A lot of the outfits were designed by Versace, who obviously Versace, the Miami connection with all that too.
Yeah, I was just waiting for like Pitbull and I don't know, Pitbull, like Miami. There wasn't any. Every once in a while, or at least in most Super Bowl halftime shows, there's like one kind of special star guest appearance, usually someone from that hometown. And I had picked Pitbull to come out, but they didn't have any special appearances. It was just J-Lo and Shakira. But hey, that was enough for me.
They had Bad Bunny and J Balvin.
Oh, that's right.
Are not well known.
No, but they've collaborated with those artists before, so
Latin artists. Yeah.
I guess that kind of makes sense. But I was happy.
You liked it.
You could have kept the screen on Shakira and J-Lo the whole time. Forget about the crowd. Forget about the backup dancers. Forget about all that. I thought it was a great performance.
I was there for the football.
You know what? I was there for all of it, Nick.
Okay.
I was there for 100% of it.
I thought that. Did you know that? I didn't know people did this. Did you know that people bet on the timing of the national anthem?
Oh yeah.
And that there was a lot of people saying that Demi Lovato has a tendency. She's done it before. I think she sang at the Floyd Mayweather-Pacquiao fight.
Oh, that she would go over.
She goes over.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people were pissed.
And you know what? I think now I don't know if this is true. I was just reading this, so I don't know if this was an actual prop bet. If there was going to be a wardrobe malfunction, like in years past when Janet Jackson had that wardrobe malfunction, and I believe it was Justin Timberlake who was up there as well. So I think people this year was like, oh my gosh, it's Shakira and it's J-Lo. People wanted to see
Was that a wardrobe malfunction though back in the day, or was that literally Justin Timberlake just ripping it raw?
I'm gonna say wardrobe malfunction. I'm gonna give Justin Timberlake the benefit of that. I don't think he would do that on national television. All right, so but no, I think that was like a random prop bet that apparently I don't know for sure to see malfunction. So.
Okay, and then moving on to the commercials. I know which one my favorite was, and it was the guy that plays the. God, why am I forgetting his name now? The guy that plays
Jason
Aquaman.
Well,
yeah,
that
Aquaman
was great.
with the he was Rocket Mortgage, and he took off his muscles and got real skinny.
Dude, and then at the very end, he like loses his hair on the top of his head, and he it's his face, and he still has the muscular face, but he's got just twigs for arms, twigs for legs, and then he loses his hair. You just see long hair on the side of him. It was disturbing. It was hilarious. We were all cracking up. That was actually number one for me. Here I'm on CBS Sports, and they said the number one commercial was the Hyundai Smart Pack commercial, where you had a lot of New Englanders, a lot of Boston people, Chris Evans, Rachel Dratch, David Ortiz made an appearance. So that supposedly was.
You know why that's not funny? Because there wasn't Patriots fans watching, so they shouldn't have put a Boston commercial in there.
Ooh.
Look at how pompous the city of Boston is thinking the Patriots were going to be in the Super Bowl.
Guess what? A lot of people voted them number one.
I don't even remember that one.
Right. We had the Jeep, the Groundhog Day with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
That was good.
Obviously with a reference to Groundhog Day that he started in 1993.
Well, wasn't Groundhog Day? It was the Super Bowl day. I think Groundhog Day was that day.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, because I remember. I'm trying to remember exactly. We're apparently the groundhog saw whatever it means. We're gonna have a spring.
Oh, that's right. We're gonna have an early spring.
Yeah, I think it was Super Bowl day.
Was that Super Bowl?
That's probably what.
Okay.
They had.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
This one, number 4 on this specific list was the Google commercial with Loretta, where this gentleman who lost his wife kept asking Google to, he'd say, Google, what was Loretta's favorite color?
Yeah.
So it was very sad because he was reliving the memories of his late wife. So I mean, you get it, and like, good job, Google, but I don't know. I don't want to see those sad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I want to see like funny.
I think everybody's there for fun.
Yeah, like it was a good
Everybody's
commercial,
there.
but just not on the Super Bowl. Those are like sentimental and sad, and I don't know. I want to see like upbeat, funny, comedy type of commercials. And then number 5, we're not going to go through the whole list, but number 5,
that was good.
The Doritos, the Cool Ranch long form. That was pretty cool. Lil Nas X, that was a good one too. But I think I definitely have to put. I got to put Jason. Is it? How do you say his last name?
Jason Momoa.
Momoa. Okay, and that to me was definitely number 1. Like, no doubt.
I thought that
will
was
stick in my.
That one actually made me laugh.
Yeah.
Whereas, but the one we disagree on the most is the Tom Brady Hulu commercial. Clearly.
I don't remember that one. I might have been getting snacks at that time.
Tom Brady, the one where he says that he's coming back. That was a commercial.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's
No. We disagree for sure. Let us know what you thought what was your favorite Super Bowl commercial? What was your least favorite Super Bowl commercial? Let us know who you thought won in the halftime performance. Even though it wasn't a competition, J-Lo and Shakira were performing together. Did one do better than the other? Was it a great duo performance? Where do you rank it among the all-time Super Bowl halftime performance shows? So let us know, because we would love to hear your thoughts.
Overall, though, I'll say this. The Super Bowl commercials have just gotten worse.
They've gotten way worse because people are trying too hard.
Well, I think number one, people are trying too hard. I just think, like, we all remember, like, the GoDaddy commercials from every. I just think, like, and you don't have, like, the traditional ones as many. There was a lot of traditional ones back in the day where there was continual, like, there was continued stories from years past and stuff like that.
Well, you had that with the Bud Light commercials.
You do.
Right? And those started a couple years ago, and those are still really funny. I think there was 1 or 2 that were in this one. There was the Tide commercial, and that I think there was 2 or 3 Tide commercials during the Super Bowl that were all related one after another. Just think about the money, right? For a 15 or 30 second slot, and you have 3 commercials in one Super Bowl game. That's a lot of change. That's over $10 million. Easily, just for about a minute worth of commercials.
Yeah, but like I said, then you're on some website and they're talking about your commercial. Where if you put that spot pretty much in any other sporting event, period, you're not going to get.
You're not going to get that type of leadership.
But let's get better with the commercial.
Yeah, no, I think people are just trying too hard, man. Like, I don't know, you got the creativity, the marketing, and the strategy. I would say in recent years, in recent memory for myself, I would definitely have to put the Bud Light commercials as number 1, right? Just consistently every year, they kind of piggyback off of what they're doing, continue to, maybe they're not as funny as when they first came out, because when they first came out, it was just like, oh my gosh, who would think to do that, right? Medieval times and all that stuff. But I definitely think the Bud Light, for me, that one sticks out in the last 5 years.
Yeah, but so, I guess on the Super Bowl 55 in Tampa. Don't know what the halftime show necessarily.
Oh, it's going to be in Tampa. Wow, so back-to-back Florida, huh?
A bunch of pirates dancing around. That's what the...
Good for Florida, back-to-back Super Bowl. Hey, listen, I'm sure in the next couple of years,
unfair.
The Las Vegas Raiders get used to saying that. Usually what happens when a team gets a new stadium, they have to play 1 full year with no hiccups and no problems. And usually within the 2nd, 3rd, 4th year of that team being in that new stadium, they will get a Super Bowl appearance. So we could be looking at the Las Vegas Raiders as hosting the Super Bowl in the coming years.
Isn't LA 56?
Potentially, I don't know if they have that booked yet, but I have a feeling that,
I mean, LA,
with that new stadium, they're gonna want that revenue. It's Vegas. Who doesn't want to go to Vegas for a week? I mean, think about that. Like, obviously, when you go to Miami or I don't know, Nashville or something like that, that'd be cool. But Vegas is already a crazy time on its own, and now you add the Super Bowl experience on top of that. I mean, Vegas is already hosting the NFL draft this year. That's going to be a full 3-day experience, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You might as well just tag Sunday along with that. But to have the Super Bowl, the biggest sporting event, it's basically a national holiday, in my opinion now. Like you might as well give people that Monday off of work. It was actually really funny. They were showing the stats about the amount of people that were going to be taking the day off from work the next day. And it was like the majority of people, will have the decency to actually call in and request a day off. An X amount of people are just not going to show up. They're just going to say, well, I'm not showing up. Some people will show up and be sick, hungover, and then end up going home. But it was a funny stat on just give people Monday off. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess you gotta kind of hope you have a football fan boss, right? Like it's just someone that's going to understand and at least partake in.
Yeah, I luckily did not have to go to work.
Super Bowl 56 is in LA.
It's in LA.
2023 is actually in Arizona.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna have some local, at least West Coast Super Bowls in the next coming years.
2024 Superdome.
New Orleans. Okay, that's another. All right.
Last
I'd
time
like to
they
go there.
had the Power Rangers last time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, 49ers once again. That was their last loss.
Yeah.
Woo! With Colin Kaepernick, but we're not going to get into that. They did not. I think Nick and I we didn't have a bet, but
and the over/under was 1.
Yeah, and they didn't say it at all.
They didn't say it.
No. Well, that's a wrap for the Cover 2 podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Once again, comments. Let us know your thoughts about the Super Bowl halftime show, about the commercials, which ones you thought were the best. And that is basically a wrap on the 2019 NFL season.
Absolutely.
And at the end of this month, the end of February, will be the NFL Combine, and then after that, we'll get into the NFL Draft. So this is not the last you will hear from us as far as the NFL goes, but as far as the games for the 2019 season, that's a wrap. The Kansas City Chiefs are your Super Bowl champions for Super Bowl 54.
Yes, and we end the 100th season of NFL football with potentially the best quarterback in the next 100 years winning the Super Bowl in that year.
Okay, that's a debatable topic. Something that we can talk about.
Very debatable, but it's it's interesting that person won.
I like it. Yeah. That's a tease for our upcoming shows, by the way. We'll be talking about that a little bit in the future. But for today's show, I'm Jared Smith.
I'm Nick Nenad.
This has been the Cover 2 podcast. Thank you for watching us. We'll see you guys next week.